Yes. No, we're not.
Hi, I'm Jordan Young, the Executive Director of the Women's International Studies Center. I'm happy to be here today with Dr. Julie Sasse, a 2016 WISC Fellow. She'll be sharing with us about the book that she worked on at WISC. This is our first live webinar, and we will continue to check in with our fellows and share their work with you. Please visit our website now and in the coming weeks to see videos about our other incredible fellows and residents and find out what work they're up to. Thank you for joining us today, and a special thanks to our WISC members. Your membership to WISC allows us to continue supporting projects like Julie's. I'd also like to thank Pilar Law, who's working behind the scenes to help things run smoothly. Fingers crossed. Dr. Julie Sasse is the Chief Curator at the Tucson Museum of Art and Historic Block. WISC was thrilled to support a project on local art legend Elaine Horwitch. Julie's book, which is available next week at the Museum of New Mexico and will be available at WISC in the coming weeks. Please get a copy. Her book takes the reader through the history and art of the Southwest in all of its complication and beauty. It is so well researched and so thorough. I hope that you all will get a chance to read it. If you have questions for Julie after we finish our interview, please type them into the questions bar and we'll try to address as many as we can. Thanks. Thanks, Julie.
Good to be here.
So Julie, I want you to tell us how this project came about. How did you decide to write a book on Elaine Horwitch?
Well, to begin with, I worked for Elaine Horwitch Galleries from 1980 until 1995, I think. So I was there for at least 14 years. And over that time, I worked very closely with Elaine until she died in 1991. And what made my situation unique is that while a lot of people worked for Elaine, I kept copious notes and lists. I'm a list maker, and I kept in touch with all the artists and all of the employees and the family. And so that rare situation caused me to kind of know where everybody was and keep up with. I became command central for where is everybody today? Well, it was people like Bill Schenck and Mark McDowell who were saying to me, you know, someone should write a book about Elaine Horwitch. Oh, they would fondly reminisce about the old days. And finally they went, you should do it.
You're the person.
Right? You know what you're doing. You can go on and on. So they talked me into it. Mark McDowell is connected with Cattle Track Arts and Preservation. And they got a grant from the Rauschenberg Foundation and commissioned me to do the book. At first I said, there's no way I can do it. It's going to take a tremendous amount of research and time. Well, they sucked me in, and 4.5 years later, voila, 540-page book.
So it did take a tremendous amount of research.
Every minute of my life that I wasn't working at the museum. And then on top of that, my CEO, Jeremy Mikolajczak, said, this is a perfect exhibition, because we had so many works by Elaine Horwich's artists in our collection. So he said, not only am I going to insist you do an exhibition, but you're going to do it in 2 years. So get that book, as he would say.
So align with the exhibition schedule. Yeah. And the exhibition, can we see it virtually? Can we see pieces of it virtually?
You can go on the Tucson Museum website, and it has images. There's a link to get the book there too. And it's really been fun. Plus there's been some live tours that you can see where I'm actually walking around talking about the pieces. So it's wonderful. And then just as a sidebar, and a very important one, the New Mexico Museum of Art is going to have their version, which will open next March 13th for many months. And that will be selections from their collection of the same artists, but
wonderful,
better or different examples. And then also this coming October at the Booth Museum in Cartersville, Georgia. So very fun.
Wonderful. What was Elaine like? What was she like to work with?
Well, I've always said she was larger than life, and the family backs me up on that. I called her the Annie Oakley of the art world, mainly because she dressed in very, not flamboyant, but in very clear cowgirl attire with gorgeous Larry Mahan cowboy boots and She had 50 pairs, I think, in different colors. She had beautiful he-she necklaces or silver concha bells, and wonderful piped cowgirl shirts and that kind of stuff. But what made her really special is that everybody knew she carried a loaded Smith & Wesson pearl-handled pistol in her purse. And she delighted in pulling it out at the most inopportune times for somebody else, like out with a wealthy client from Chicago, and we would be at dinner and she would wait till they talked about gun control and she'd pull out her pistol, slam it on the table and say, well, I always pack heat. So she was so much fun, and she just had tremendous confidence and a great sense of humor, and everyone had stories like that to tell. It was like, oh, here comes another gun story.
It sounds like she was really quite a character. What was her relationship like with her artists and the artists that she supported?
Well, one of the things that I really was impressed with her is that she had just as many women artists in her gallery as she did men artists. And everybody thought they were special, of course, and of course all the staff thought they were her best friend or the special one.
She had that ability.
She knew how to make everybody feel like they were the best. But what was funny is a few people thought that they were the only ones that were put on stipends. So she underwrote people. She advanced money to them. She traded things that they needed, cars, trucks, you name it. She supported her artists. And I have one funny story where I thought it was funny so many people came in to talk to her to get an advance or underwriting for something or payment, that I actually bought a take a number, like you said at the ice cream parlor, and I put it outside her office. She wasn't too amused, so I had to take it down right away.
Like at the meat counter?
That's how I felt. But
because they would come to you.
Oh, they'd come to me to see if they could get in line, and I'd say, stand in line. So, but anyway, the nice thing is that she really went out of her way to support women. Mm-hmm. She gave them advances. She encouraged them to do editions of prints. She offered them exhibitions when others wouldn't. And I think that's what really made her remarkable. She cared about their situations, and she believed that their work was as good as any of the men. However, there were some very famous men artists that she just kind of messed with them and kind of delayed giving them money because she thought they were going to be up to no good with what they, how they spent their money. And so they sometimes had problems. So a few people said they had trouble getting paid, but it's because she was self-declared everybody's Jewish mother, and it was her way of keeping them from drinking.
Getting in trouble.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. How many artists did she carry, and what kind of art was she looking for and looking to support? What is it that kind of made a Horwitch gallery different?
Sure. Well, she started out, of course, as the Art Wagon, which was a house-to-house kind of a Tupperware party model with another partner, Suzanne Brown. But when she opened her first gallery in Scottsdale, that was 1973, she soon got 2 galleries in Scottsdale and then opened in 76 in Santa Fe, and then Sedona, Arizona, and then Palm Springs. So she had 5 galleries at the very end, so at the height of her time. So think about it, with the volume that was going through those galleries, she had at least 250 artists, and that's artists that were regular, bringing in inventory or exhibitions between the different galleries. And then she had the books that she bought at auction, the famous artists, or the blue chip as they call it. Mm-hmm. So she had hundreds of artists, and they all were in and out and making calls all day long. But at the height of her era in the 1980s in Santa Fe, I actually likened it to a grocery store in that we were checking out, writing up sales all day long. At one point I said, everyone, hold on to your pieces, I'll get to you, because people were grabbing them before the artist could even place them on the ground ready to take back into the storage area. We had to get trucks to come and take the art away because it was selling so fast. So it was a tremendous, tremendous time in the 80s.
Wow, what a market.
Oh, it was exciting. It was really and celebrities all the time. You didn't want to take your day off because you'd miss somebody, you know.
So it was fun.
Yes.
So, what do you think Elaine's legacy is? Why should people care about her?
Well, some people at the time, kind of sneered, but what she did that made her very special is she really is one of the biggest catalysts to the idea of the new Southwest art. Prior to her time, there was some contemporary art and there was Western art, but she selected artists that sort of blended the two, a new, bold way of looking at the Southwest that was sort of irreverent with a little sense of humor or critical, sort of sometimes even sarcastic bent. But she changed how we saw it. It wasn't this nostalgic, romanticized Southwest, but one that everybody could access. So maybe looking at suburban Arizona and swimming pools with like a Joe Baker painting where the Golden Labrador had a chief's headdress on. Of course, Joe Baker is Native American, so he had a right to portray these mix of cultures. Tom Palmore doing, 8 to 10 foot paintings of longhorn steers, Bill Schenck doing movie still images. It was a whole new way of looking that was sort of a blend of pop art with the romanticized notion of the West. So that's what she did. And then she added folk art, and she added women artists, and she added abstraction. And so it was this kind of a mishmash, but it was also, what we think of as the pastiche of postmodernism. So she really, very much so.
Yeah.
But with a very distinctive Southwest bent.
What women inspire you in your work?
Well, I'll say it's the one thing that I really got from her is her work ethic and her passion.
Elaine's work.
Elaine Horwitch, yeah. So she was one of my biggest mentors, and I learned all about business, art business, especially from her. But the women artists that she had became my first heroes, and the ones that were the big names that came through. Claire Zeisler, she did an exhibition of her work. Helen Frankenthaler, she showed her work. Miriam Shapiro was a good friend who would come in and she sold her work. But then younger artists too, of course, Suzanne Klotz was a huge influence and one of the most remarkable women, probably I think one of the most underrated women artists in this country. She does tremendous work bringing cultures together through art. Anne Coe with her chutzpah and her wonderful red hair, and so smart. This idea of bringing art and wit together was embodied in these people. And then someone who wasn't an Elaine Horwitch artist, but one that I have truly admired, and that's Mame Kratz, because her work is so consistently beautiful, and she just knows how to tap into one's feelings about nature and beauty and depth. So those are the people I look at, and Beth Ames Swartz for her staying power and her tenacity to stay within her vision. And these are all women who either had a presence in the Southwest or who currently live there. And I still admire their work. They continue to do tremendously beautiful works. So those are my heroes.
Yeah. It's amazing to hear you name all of those women artists and to know that Elaine and you were part of their history.
Absolutely. I mean, I can remember their exhibitions, the announcements. Of course, I designed the invitations or had them printed. I'm the one who organized what works went to the art fairs. So I was in the trenches. I was the one that was sent around to do all the inventory. She had as much inventory as many museums have in their collections. So I see works now in museums or in people's homes, and I go, I sold that. I know that piece.
Yeah, it seems like the whole education that you received doing that work for her. Did you do your PhD work before or after that time period?
I did it. Actually, I was getting I had an MFA. I was a weaver and a metalsmith, if you can imagine.
I can. I can imagine you doing lots of things.
Yeah. But I went back when Elaine was still alive to get my master's in art history because she had exposed me to so many fascinating galleries and artworks, and I realized that I knew a lot about the price points, the little interesting stories, like I got to know Larry Rivers and people like that, but I didn't understand why they were great because I was so busy making art or teaching art originally that I wanted to know why it was important. And so I went back to get a master's in art history, and she died during that time period. In fact, I was working on an assessment of her plateau beaded bag collection, which ended up becoming a very important show at the Heard Museum. But anyway, it was actually maybe 20 years later that I got my PhD. And I think I did it because one person said, do you have a PhD? And I went, oh my God, no, I have to get one. So don't ever ask me if I have anything, I'll go and do it.
You were working as a curator long before
By
that.
then, yes, absolutely.
So I'm going to ask one question from the audience. Can you talk about your work now as a curator at the Tucson Museum of Art? What's the most rewarding part of your work?
Well, there was a point where I fought hard to get international artists, and I still do. But there was this aha moment, and I think it was around the time I started to do the research for this book. And I realized that I have something unique that I can offer the state of the arts in the country, something to contribute, and that is to champion and highlight the art from the Southwest, and to actually
Get it out there.
allow it the limelight that it deserves. And so what I've tried to do at the Tucson Museum of Art, and I've been there now, it'll be 20 years on July 6th. I expect ice cream, guys. Okay, pizza would work too. But what I really try to do is make sure that artists from this region are included in exhibitions so that they could be shown, like Elaine did, right alongside the famous artists. Because they deserve to be in that league. They have the qualities. It's just the way curators perceive certain artists as opposed to others. So that's what I like to do, is to make sure that more diversity gets addressed and on the map.
When you're curating or working in that way, you also make art, right? How do you make time for all the things that you do while you're writing books, while you're curating shows? I know that you're able to create yourself. How is it that you're able to do all these things?
Well, I've told people this before. I don't have a cat. I don't have a dog. I'm not seeing anybody, and you can imagine why, because I'm always doing something else. My studio is kind of a mess right now, but I do still make art. And I insisted I was going to get back to the studio immediately after this book launched, and already I've taken 3 projects, all from the Southwest, but you know, people are hitting me up while I can still think.
Why do you think, what is it about the Southwest that brought you here, or that's so inspiring to artists?
And that was one of the most fun things, to find out what brought people. And people left Philadelphia, they left New York, they
all through your book.
They left Chicago. They chose to come out here. They weren't sent in exile. I know Bill Schenck thinks he was, but they chose to come here. And they wanted that same thing that I was looking for. I wanted a sense of freedom, freedom to do the kind of work I wanted to do, to be not forced to follow everybody else's rules. And so that kind of sense of freedom, that spirit, that, even willing to lose the chance to be famous, but just to do the work you want to do. I had that, but I, of course, not the same league that the artists I ended up working with.
But the Southwest provided it for you.
Totally did. And I didn't even know about the Southwest other than I knew that something about it drew me here. And once I came, I tried to leave a few times thinking I should go, and I had to come back.
You tried to leave?
I tried. I thought, you need to be going up the ladder and doing that. No. And so I understand it's all about following your heart and not caring what anybody else is doing. Focus on what your passion is. And that's my passion.
So we have another question. Did Elaine ever represent Lily Fenichel, Nicole?
Fenichel. I think so, but that's one name that I would have to research. But the name's familiar. But I will tell you, I don't always remember the 250 plus. An example is that Judy Miller came up to me, an artist in Tucson, a very good photographer. And she said, I showed at Elaine Horwitch, and I thought, no, you didn't. I don't remember you. Well, darned if she would. I didn't find out later that she did. So there were lots of, that name is very familiar. And then there were a few in Palm Springs that I didn't quite capture towards the end. So very possible.
So you were kind of driving back and forth between Scottsdale, Santa Fe.
Yes.
in Palm Springs.
Sometimes I would fly with Elaine in her plane, and I wasn't the only one. Vicki Boyce, Carol Sherman, lots of others were with her. But at some point, I became kind of a general manager. And so if she had to be in Sedona, but she had an opening in Palm Springs, I would go to one of the other places, or we'd fly together. She was notorious for bringing a box of donuts with her. And in fact, when she passed,
A box of donuts.
yeah, she and I shared a passion for sweets. She would go to Price Club, it was called Price Club back then, and buy bags of candy, and she'd hide it in my office to keep it from her husband, who was trying to keep her to be healthy, and she would throw them down on my desk like they were a bag of bullets and go, you know what to do with it. And so anyway, she would have a box of donuts.
Candy stash at your office.
I was her neighbor. It's awful, but we loved hamburgers, we loved pizza. After openings, instead of going to a fancy dinner, we'd all go bowling and have hot dogs and hamburgers and beer. But anyway, I forgot what I was saying. But anyway, it was fun. It was always fun with her. And so
it sounds fun. In the book, you mentioned her Indian market parties.
Yes, those were legendary. People would start lobbying to get on the list months in advance. And the person who did her catering remarked that she would never tell us the final count because it had gone double and triple, and she didn't want to be charged more, so she just kept inviting people. And then the staff was the one that had to be at the door to check people in or not. But of course, they would all kiss up to us so that they would get in. But I remember finding old letters that I wrote to my mother about I met Goldie Hawn and Richard Crenna came to the party, and John Aaron, just always just tremendous excitement. Michael Tilson Thomas is at our house, and Elaine's brought out a piano so that he can practice. And oh my God, every day was a fun day.
It sounds like it. It really does. Do we have another question from the audience? What are you working on now, Jerry?
Well, right now, of course, unfortunately, due to COVID, our exhibition was put on hold. So that hopefully will be opening up the third week of July. They extended the show till September 20th. So I'm still touring that one and hoping to, keep getting that show a little airplay. But then after that, we have the Arizona Biennial, which is a wonderful way to find out the latest young talent that's coming out of Arizona. And so that one is being juried by
painting, photography,
everything, sculpture, installations. And we thought it'd be fitting to have Joe Baker be the juror. And he's been a museum director, an administrator, the dean at the IAIA, so he certainly knows his stuff, and he has a long history with Arizona. So I'm the facilitator, but I get to go shop every day, so I'm excited about that. But then next year, I will be doing a big solo exhibition of the artist Olivier Mosset, who is actually a Swiss-born artist who is part of the original Bayam Pété from France, and very minimal, but amazing works. And he's another one who just, left Europe and came west and loves to ride his motorcycle in the desert. He's so right up my alley. So we're doing a show. And then after that, a solo exhibition of the works by Brad Kahlhammer. Mm-hmm. And he's an artist from Brooklyn, but he was born, adopted from a Native American family, but adopted in Tucson. And that's going to be called the 1159 to Tucson. So very exciting.
What was the status of women artists in the Southwest gallery scene around the time that Elaine opened her gallery?
Well, it's so.
You said she really put them on the map.
It's so meshed with the feminist movement. The early 1970s was this pivotal sea change. Judy Chicago was active in Los Angeles, and the women were emboldened. They were coming to grad schools in bigger numbers. And like I said, Elaine would take lots and lots of women artists. So at least in the Southwest, they were doing very strong work, and they were not afraid to approach Elaine or go to Suzanne Brown Gallery or any number of galleries in Santa Fe, Hills Gallery, Jameson Gallery, and then of course Linda Durham and Laura Carpenter. All of these people had lots of women artists. So this was when it just started to shift, where they were starting to get noticed. Maybe not having as many museum acquisitions, but they were starting to show and sell in the galleries. And so we got to witness that change. And the women were not complaining. They were not feeling that they didn't have opportunities. Whereas I've spoken to women of a generation just slightly older than that, and they felt a lot of oppression and a lot of sort of people ignoring them. But things started to change right around the time that Elaine had opened her galleries.
With more opportunities. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us, to our WISC audience, and thank you to Julie. As we said at the beginning, make sure that you get a copy of the book. We'll have them available on the WISC website in a couple of weeks. You can also get one through the Museums of New Mexico in about a week. We hope that you'll get a copy. It's really fantastic. We want you to stay tuned to our emails and website during these difficult times. Let's stay connected and keep celebrating women like Julie who are achieving their goals.
And can I just say real fast, if it hadn't been for the Women's International Studies Center, I couldn't have done the type of in-depth research that I did. And I have to say, I cried every day I woke up in gratitude for the beautiful place they put their scholars up, for the respect and the care and concern that they gave me for my research. And if you can support the Women's International Studies Center, do so, because they do absolutely amazing work, and it changed my whole world, and I'll never forget that.
Thank you, Julie.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.